Welcome, everyone. Today, I want to talk about the concept that everything is mental. I didn't quite understand it at first, but lately I feel like I'm making progress. We shape our reality. We've heard that before. Our choices, our beliefs, everything shapes our reality. Some of us agree with that more, some not so deeply. So we agree with that or disagree. We agree to a certain degree. Doesn't really matter as long as it works for us. But the way we perceive whatever we look at, the way we perceive shapes what we perceive, and forms it to the shape that we give it. So, in other words, we might summarize it by saying, if you perceive someone as good, you will see more good qualities of that person. If you perceive someone as bad, those bad qualities will be louder. I have realized that my perception has actually affected my relationship with my current boyfriend. Why? Because initially, when we were trying to learn each other, I started having a suspicion that he might be a narcissist. And I realized after a year or so, maybe a little bit over 1 year, that part of my way of seeing him was somehow connected to my last dating experience, which took place 2 years prior me meeting my current boyfriend. 2 years before I met my current partner, I was dating with not only a narcissist, but we would say a sociopath. A person who skillfully manipulates and destroys, ultimately, other people's lives. And after that experience, which lasted 6 months, thank God, even though I was quite aware and my consciousness was quite sharp, I still fell into the traps, one after another, of that person who was willingly and on purpose manipulating me and people in his life and events. So when I entered into the relationship 2 years later, after being single for 2 years, I think subconsciously I was scared, worried that I might attract a similar person. And of course, I wanted to avoid attracting a similar person, but having that willingness to avoid that, because that dating with a sociopath ended up with physical abuse, which I was the receiver. And it took me a lot of healing to understand myself, my behavior, my acceptance to certain behaviors, forgiving myself for not seeing it sooner, forgiving myself for giving it more time, etc., etc. So after that trauma, which I thought was fully healed, I started dating again. And the interesting thing happened because the first year of dating my present partner, and we've been together for 3 years now, but the first year has been the time filled with contradicting experiences. And when I read recently the words that everything is mental, and the way we perceive reality affects the shape that our reality gets, I understood finally what happened in that first year of my dating. Because I remember I was at some point going to leave, and I left. But after a few days of journaling, thinking, really allowing myself to go deep into myself and deep reflection, I realized that it's not time to leave. I realized that that person is not black and white. And we as a couple deserve another chance. And I remember talking to one of my friends at that point, who was really telling me, what are you doing, Kasia? It's like you are dating another sociopath, a narcissist, based on the stories you've told me, what you've experienced. Why would you go back to him? I couldn't quite explain it. Other than that, I knew exactly that person is different. In other words, not a narcissist, even though I was seeing a lot of narcissistic behavior and traits initially. And after our reunion between me and my boyfriend, everything changed. And it wasn't like he changed because he felt sad that I left, and it was a very brief experience. It wasn't that he was sad. He was, well, at least the way he was showing himself, he looked very confident. But and yes, happy that we give it another chance, but definitely not desperate. So it's not that he started reshaping his behavior to please me, not at all. Actually, his behavior didn't change, but the way how I was perceiving it changed. And my way of perceiving it changed, and that was driving his behavior. So in other words, my perception started affecting how he was behaving. Or maybe I just started seeing it differently. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that by changing our perception, we can change the psychopaths or sociopaths' behavior. There are some really pathological behaviors that we would need to protect ourselves from being the victims and being a target. But I'm talking more of daily encounters with people that are in our life, like our children, our partners, our parents, and us. Because if I could change my relationship by changing the way I perceived certain behaviors, and it affected our relationship to the degree where we blossom month after month, week after week, despite our arguments, which are maybe a natural part, I don't know yet, of every relationship, but maybe not. But we blossom. We can't deny that. And then I took a step further, and I want to invite you today. I don't want to invite you to agree or disagree with me, but I want to invite you to a simple exercise. Experiment with your perception. How do you perceive your children? How do you perceive your friends' children? How do you perceive your friends, your boyfriend, your girlfriend? How do you perceive your parents? And play with that way of perception. Play with that in a way. If you, let's take an example of a child. If you find one of children exceptionally annoying or naughty, change the perception and see the good in that person, in that child. See the good. Focus on something opposite to what you've been focused so far, and see what happens. See what happens. And the same exercise I want to invite you to implement in terms of the way how you perceive yourself. Yourself. My voice went up because I feel excited. I feel excited because if we start seeing ourselves with that, without that artificial veil that we put on ourselves at some point, by our beliefs, by our stories, if we are capable of removing that fog that distorts the way we see ourselves, then we can become even more powerful and empowering and empowered. And that's what I want you to experience. Everything is mental. The way I look at things, the way things shape. How can I look at me today so that I become this empowered person and powerful? If we look at a child as naughty, we experience naughtiness. And if we are ready to look through the naughtiness, beyond naughtiness, and see goodness, love, purity in that being, something changes. If we perceive ourselves as failures, not good enough, not deserving enough, then this is the reality we shape. This is the reality we experience. But if we can see through, beyond those beliefs, and start perceiving ourselves as pure, loving, caring, fabulous, inspiring, beautiful beings, then something changes. Something changes profoundly. Something changes profoundly. And you start experiencing different reality. We start experiencing different reality because we are the greatest creators. We shape our reality. And we shape it also by the way how we perceive it, how we choose to perceive it. So choose differently today. Be bold, be brave to experiment with that. Be bold, be brave to experiment with that. Give yourself permission. Be playful, laugh. Treat it as an experiment that can change your life. The way you perceive your reality shapes your reality. Write it down. Don't believe me. Write it down. The way I perceive my reality shapes that reality, gives it shape, gives it meaning, gives it path. So if you don't like your reality, you can change it by changing the way you perceive it. Feels like a challenge, feels like something impossible, feels like too difficult or too easy to be true. You've got nothing to lose. You've got nothing to lose. But play with it today. Play with it. Whoever you encounter today, your colleagues, your friends, your family members, perceive them differently, but make it consciously. But really look for different aspects that you are used to, that you got used to looking at. And if you have no people around you today, play with yourself. That sounds funny. Play with yourself. Play with the way how you perceive yourself and be playful. Experiment with that. When you catch yourself thinking a negative thought about yourself, play with it and change it. What if I saw myself with the eyes of compassion, love, kindness and care today, how does that change my relationship to me? Me to me? How does that shape my reality? If you struggle with reaching your goals, if you struggle with whatever you plan, change your perception of yourself and the situations. Don't see them as hard, difficult, unreachable, accessible only to few or chosen ones. You are a chosen one. The only thing that stops you to a big degree is your interpretation. In other words, the way you perceive a certain challenge, which only you call a challenge. So look at the world neutrally today. White canvas. No predestined judgments. No pre-lived judgments or judgments that got born because you had experienced something with that person in the situation, in the similar situation. White canvas, blank canvas. You've got a brush. You are a painter. Paint. And be brave to use bold colors. Paint the most amazing, colorful picture you can imagine. And be brave to imagine the colorful picture, because we need to be brave if we want to change something. Summarizing, play with the way you perceive your world today, and your world, see how your world changes. Thank you for being here with me today. I wish you a wonderful day, and I wish you enjoyable experimenting with all those notions, with all those exercises. Let it be fun time for you. I'll see you soon. And join me in the Facebook group, Mindset in Online Business. And if you enjoyed today's video recording, please like it, share it with someone you find those words might inspire. I'm Kasia Krasucka. I'm an embodiment coach, and I'm grateful for you. I'll see you soon.